can learn and so that you can educate yourselves and meet and connect. And what I see in front of me right now is an incredibly beautiful range of activism. And I just want to say, I thank you. I wish you all could see what I see. So I have an idea. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone and just look at them while I read 3 sentences. And at the end, you can just say, if you want to, just say thank you. And if somebody thanks you, you can say, you're welcome. And if you would just do this so that you each get a 1 thank you and 1 welcome, that would be great. Does that sound okay? Good. I didn't wait for you to say no. Please turn to someone, if you know them or don't know them, so that you can see what I see. I don't have to do anything. This is great.
Hi. I'm Sylvia.
Okay, are you ready?
Nice to meet you.
Are you ready? Wait, I gotta read something.
The man behind the woman.
Thank you for having me.
All right, heads up. Is everybody looking at someone? Yes. Just know this. You are looking right now at someone who is committed to learn, to do, to work for a just and sustainable planet. You are seeing someone right now who works and cares as much as you do and who understands all the work that you do, and who understands the sacrifices and the choices that each of you have made. And you are looking at someone right now who truly loves this, our common planet. If you want to, just say thank you.
Thank you.
And if you've been thanked, just say you're welcome. So that's the view that I have from up here. Okay. Now it's an honor to introduce our next speaker, Robin Chase. Robin Chase is the rare person who has a truly global view of business and the environment. She'll talk with us about the power we have when we scale up at the local level. Who could be better than this than Robin? She started ZipCar. How many people have been in a ZipCar? A small local company which is now international. Robin's background is she spent her childhood in the Middle East traveling. She was educated in the Boston area, graduating from Wellesley and the MIT School of Management. She's known for being the former CEO and co-founder of ZipCar. And these days, Robin is now the founder and CEO of BuzzCar, which is in France, a service that brings together car owners and drivers to car share. She's on the board of the World Resources Institute, served on the World Economic Forum Future of Transportation Council, the Massachusetts Governor's Transportation Transition Team, and the Boston Mayor's Wireless Task Force. Quite a mouthful. She's also the proud mother of 3 children, and I can guarantee you there are 3 children out there who are very proud of her. It's an honor to welcome you.
Particularly that's such a terrific introduction, which I feel like I want to steal another time because it was so good about why we're all in this room here on a Sunday. And I am actually quite moved. So let me just get started because we're running behind and I want to make sure to leave you guys some time to ask questions. So if we think about ZipCar, there's a new organizational paradigm out there, and ZipCar was a first example. And so let me tell you why I think, some of the reasons why I think ZipCar succeeded. ZipCar tapped into excess capacity. If you think about how pre-ZipCar days, or people consumed their cars, they had 2 choices. One was to buy an entire car, which they would only use 5% of the time. And that car costs about $9,000 a year, and most of you guys probably don't believe that, but it's true. So day in, day out, whether or not you use your car, you're spending $25 a day. And so because there was this excess capacity in that way, I knew that if we could offer a service by the hour, by the day, it would be really, the economics worked out. Likewise, you had the other option of renting a car for 24-hour periods. Again, you had to buy these 24-hour bundles, whether you wanted it for 2 hours or 26 hours. So again, your demand for a car was not matching the way it was supplied, so there's this huge excess capacity. So that's one of the reasons I knew the economics of this idea were going to be in my favor. The other thing we did is we built a platform for participation. You as an individual are not going to rent a car for an hour if it takes you 20 minutes to go stand in line. It still takes today to rent a rental car, which I still can't believe after 14 years they haven't figured out. I mean, it only should take a few seconds, and so that was never going to happen. We needed to have this platform for participation. We needed you guys to participate in what was going on. And the third is that we thought of you as collaborators. I always talked about our users and our consumers as members, and they really truly were our members. And we would ask our members, if we go back to the car rental idea, with car rental, you're on the opposite side of the counter, and the car rental company definitely does not trust you. They're out there to screw you, and you're thinking that they are out there to screw you, and so there's this real antagonism going on. Whereas with ZipCar, you're kind of on our side of the counter. We're in it together. We let you choose the very specific car. We asked you to do the walk around. We asked you to help fill up the car with gas and to tell us, good parking locations, how to name them, what kinds of cars. So you really were our collaborators. And this was back in 2000, and today here we are in 2014, and that is a pretty common feeling now, isn't it, that we're co-creators. And I found this great cartoon from the New Yorker, Moses coming down from the mountain. Is there a section at the bottom for comments? Isn't that exactly what would be happening if this happened today? So, as this new organizational paradigm that is resting on these three pillars, I'm calling Peers Incorporated. And it's a new business model that is really transforming our economy, redefining how we do business, and ultimately reinventing our future, and that's the part where all of you guys come in. If you look at these companies that we've talked about over the last decade, and one time I put this slide up and this person told me later, they thought, oh my gosh, you're going to tell us the same old things. Absolutely not. But these companies that you hear about so often, I look at them in a different way. I see them as building an excess capacity with a platform for participation in which we, peers, are co-creators in these companies. These companies would not exist without those three things happening. Us putting our resources and ourselves onto them. So, what is going on here? Why are we having this kind of new organizational structure? If we think about the old industrial era, why did we ever invent companies? We invented companies because they could do things that we as individuals couldn't do. That's why we invented companies and governments. And so what are they good at, those big entities? They're good at really big investments that take lots of years to do. So ZipCar probably cost $60 million to build the technology over a lot of years. There's no way I, Robin Chase, could ever have done that. Companies do things that require lots of kinds of intelligence, and it's all boiled together down to make something simple. So a lot of complexity. I, Robin Chase, am only good at one thing. So if we're going to do something bigger and harder, we're going to need lots of types of intelligence. Consistency and standards. I can tell you guys to all wear scarves when it's wintertime, but we're not going to necessarily do what I'm going to say. But if you're a big company or government, you're much more likely to be able to create standards. And this is typically bound up in a kind of global brand, and there's a kind of brand promise. And so that's what big companies and governments are good for. But conversely, individuals have some strengths that they are really good at and that companies find incredibly annoying and painful and expensive to do. What are those things? Localization, customization, specialization, access to my own personal social networks. Everyone's kind of wanting into my social networks where I know my own friends and neighbors, and I'm happy to talk to them. So all of these things are things that we uniquely, as individuals, are really good at. If you want something customized or special or local, it's much better to turn to an individual. You won't find that. And also creativity. So needless to say, these two things are actually really complementary. And because of the internet, we can now manage lots of small parts in a bigger whole. So I call this new collaboration Peers Incorporated. And the incorporated side, they create a platform for participation, and we as individuals deliver a diversity of offering. And so I kind of simplify this complicated thing into this Peers Incorporated yin and yang. Both sides they're synergistic and complementary, and if one side tries to take too much value, the other side's going to say, forget it, I don't want to participate. So both sides has to have a push and pull, otherwise the other sides won't work together. And it's all kind of floating in this sea of excess capacity. From I just think about where I'm going for this. If we think about the platform for participation, we're getting the best of what industrial capitalism had to offer. We can have these incredible economies of scale because the platform gives you those economies of scale. And if you make anything into a platform, it has the ability to grow really fast, because that's what a platform does, is it makes things kind of standardized. We think about the individuals, the peers, they're giving this diversity of offering, and whenever you have a diverse group of people, that's where you find amazing innovation, right? You have to have lots of different ways of looking at something to have incredible innovation. We have resilience and we have redundancy. And what I love most about this, of course, maybe not most, I like every aspect of this, when we look at excess capacity, we're making really efficient use of resources. But I want you guys, when you're thinking about excess capacity, to think about it in a very, very broad way. So excess capacity of your networks or of your expertise or time. So it's not just hard assets I'm talking about when I talk about excess capacity. So let me give you one of my favorite examples. All of this is about sharing, of course. So I want to talk about bed sharing. So all of you get in your mind, bed sharing? Got it? Okay, well the type of bed sharing I'm talking is when I travel to countries, I like to stay at a friend's house and stay in their excess capacity spare bedroom. And if I'm lucky, I might get this nice home office and I get to stay in that nice spare bedroom. If I'm more lucky, I get a double bed excess capacity, better yet. If I'm extremely unlucky, I'm going to get that room, and who knows if they did the sheets. And if that's my option, in fact, that's when I go to a hotel. And so I used to tease my staff, or not tease my staff, ask my staff to never call ZipCar car sharing, because no one knew what car sharing was anyway, and that sharing has this kind of icky idea. I'd say, imagine if we called hotels bed sharing. And they are effectively bed sharing. And now you think about that next time you sleep in that hotel bed, a little bit differently. So I went and did some research, and I went, what's the largest hotel chain in the world? And it's the Intercontinental Hotels Group. So they've been around for 65 years. I should change this slide. They've built 645,000 rooms in that period of time in 100 countries. So just reflect for a minute the amount of effort it took to do that. You had to go find the piece of land. First you had to decide the city. You had to find the piece of land. You had to get the architect. You had to finance it. You had to go build it. Then you had to put the furniture in it. Then you had to train the staff. Then you had to advertise and get customers to come. And then hope that there wasn't a hurricane or a tsunami or some event where you poorly chosen. It was a lot of work to get to be as big as the Intercontinental Hotels Group. Many of you will guess what my next slide is. There's Airbnb, where you put your own room and rent it out to friends and neighbors or anyone. And in 4 years, Airbnb had acquired the same number of rooms as the Intercontinental Hotels Group. And this is where I say, can you believe it? Honestly, this is mind-bending, transforming, so disruptive. It has completely changed everything that we've known before, that this type of thing can happen. And then we have couch surfing, where no money changes hands, but it's the same idea. People can come stay at your house for free. And in 9 years, they had 2.5 million beds available to be shared. So this is not only happening in the hotel industry. BlaBlaCar is a French company, and it's ride sharing, i.e. I'm going from Boston to New York, or this would be Paris to Lyon. I'm driving by myself. My excess capacity is the 3 seats that are also in my car. And they have, they're now, I'm trying to get a new slide from them, they have 6 million passengers they transport a year, which is the equivalent of 5,000 high-speed trains every month without buying a train, laying a track, and this is how many people they transport. And look at these growth curves. Etsy, so another marketplace where people are putting the things that they curate or make themselves, they grew 50% last year. And here's another new one. This is Duolingo, which is free translation services, and translation and language learning. And this, the CEO gave me this in December, but already by the end of January, they had 10 million users. More people learning a language on Duolingo than are learning languages in US public schools. So this is kind of remarkable. So I'm leaving you a little high note, and now we're going to go to the really bad stuff. And I know you guys know this bad stuff, but some of you might not know how acutely bad it is. So this 4 degrees turn down the heat. It's now a year and a quarter old. It's a report produced by the World Bank, but with original source materials. And 4 degrees is 4 degrees centigrade, so that is 7 degrees Fahrenheit. And 7 degrees Fahrenheit is the average global warming we will have by 2100 if every country does everything it promised to do. So if you're like me, you say, okay, well, what does plus 7 degrees average global warming mean? I don't know. So I did some research. And to put it into context, minus 7 degrees was when we were in the last ice age. So the last ice age, minus 7 degrees, and where we were standing right this minute, where you guys are sitting, was under several kilometers of ice. So the difference between minus 7 degrees and today, which took 35,000 years, is what we're going to be going forward in less than 85. The last time it was plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, was 20 million years ago, and there weren't any humans. I'm going to get a little worse. When I went and did this research and I was reading this source material, when we talk about global average climate change of plus 7 degrees Fahrenheit, of course, that is global, and of course, over land is a lot hotter. So the predictions for North America, where we are today, is plus 11 degrees Fahrenheit in the summers by 2100. And again, it is totally unclear that humans can live in those temperatures. And just one more step. If we don't do what we plan, we're going to hit that by 2060. So what strikes me whenever I'm in climate change conferences or conferences that are about anything else, they talk a lot about, you should be doing this for your grandchildren. And if by 2060 it's going to be plus 11, which people can't live at, that would mean by 2040 it's going to be plus something that's going to be horrific. And I intend to be alive by 2040. So forget your children and your grandchildren. Care about yourself extremely personally tomorrow. This is happening right now. And at such a pace, and it kind of kills me that whenever anybody says, yeah, do this for your children or your grandchildren, I think, in what world are you living? Like, this is so upon us. So I have 3 children who are now 20, 23, and 26. And I deeply, I can make myself cry in a minute about it. I mean, it is a really horrific situation that we're in. But my friend Banny Banerjee at Stanford gave me this great line. You can't solve exponential problems with linear solutions. And that's what I feel like we're constantly doing. I'm constantly in meetings where people are offering up these old linear solutions. And so the reason I'm telling you about Peers Incorporated and the reason I'm writing a book about this is because I think it offers for us a totally different approach. So, Peers Incorporated can change the laws of physics. If we look at this little timeline here, so this is what, if we had said 10 years ago, how fast can you build a hotel chain? We would have said, this is the pace at which you can build it. In the first 4 years, you have to go get those hotels. You have to go source them. You have to build them. This is the pace it's going to take. That's how long it's going to take because that's what physics tells us. You can't change that. Well, so today, we have Airbnb, and this is what happened in that period of time. So when we use excess capacity and idle assets that exist right there, right now, out there, we can do things at a remarkable speed. When they're put together on this platform for participation where we can organize and localize and get the best innovation out of people. So this is honestly where my optimism is coming, because this is something that 10 years ago we would have said was totally impossible. But this really is changing what we believe about physics. Here's how many people have stayed at Airbnb, so their guests are matching their rooms. This is hard physical stuff. This is not some purely virtual thing. This is real people staying in real beds, and it really actually happened. The second thing that the Peers Incorporated paradigm can do is it can change the pace of learning beyond what we imagine is humanly possible. We can suddenly now learn at a dramatically different pace. And so my new example for this is Duolingo. When I talked to their CEO last year, happens here? So let me just orient you to what's going on in this slide. If you think about Rosetta Stone has been around, I think, 60 years. It's the #1 language learning. It's the premier one. You pay the most money for it. And this along the bottom is Google Trends, which tells you how many times people search for Rosetta Stone in Google. You can see that Duolingo's been out for its 1.5 years, and it's already, it's crossing with people are using it more than Rosetta Stone. But more remarkably, let's look at this line I have at the top. Duolingo has 30,000 students who are taking standardized tests so they can match their language acquisition with standardized tests. So 1 semester of college-level French, you can accomplish with Rosetta Stone, which has been around, which has been honing itself for all these years. You can do that in 54 years. After 1.5 years, Duolingo has figured out how people learn so that it can give you that same amount of learning into 34 hours. Let me explain it even a little better. Imagine you're a French teacher, you teach 1 semester, you have 40 students, and you think, I'm going to do this better. And so then you have the next semester, and then you do yourself do it a little better, and you're kind of figuring out, okay, now I've seen 80 students, and I've taught for 2 semesters. So as an individual, you could only learn at a certain pace. With Duolingo, they can do 100 experiments simultaneously, each one having 100,000 people participate, and in 48 hours, they know for positive sure what is a better teaching method. So when we have people working on these platforms for participation, and if the platform is paying attention and looking at both the process and the best practice, we can get those best practices and push them out. So this for me is honestly where I see our hopeful future going. Let me give you some examples. I see the 350 t-shirts there. 350 is an example of a Peers Incorporated company. So they are, I think, 5 years old, and they've done 20,000 events around the world. They have their staff is the size of my hand. I mean, it's just like, and yet they've been able to pull this off because they've had these great ideas. They said, here's a platform, go out and do a PR event on this day, do these specific things, and so they could organize large numbers of people with very specific attributes. So 50,000 crowdsourced climate actions on Flickr, and hundreds of thousands of groups around the world. Another example, I'm on the board for the World Resources Institute, and they just launched last week something called Global Forest Watch. What the Global Forest Watch does is it did what only an institution can do. It negotiated with NASA and got the satellite data, and they mapped that satellite data. They put the satellite data on a map, and they overlay it. Who owns, what's the land use for each of those little plots? And I'm going to walk you through this. The ultimate goal is that you as an individual around the world can choose a piece of land that's important to you. You can draw a little perimeter around it easily, and then it will do an alert for you when the forestation changes on that land, and it's updated every 2 weeks. So any deforestation anywhere in the world can now be spotted every 2 weeks. But of course it relies on the peers. It relies on people around the world watching specific pieces of land and then going to tell their law enforcement or whoever's owning that land. So let me just walk you through this quickly. So here we have Malaysia. I'm going to zoom in to this little peninsula, zoom in farther. This is where they put on top the map of the forest use. So this is palm oil. Who has palm oil lots there? Zoom in a little more, closer, and then they're going to add here conservation land, and they come closer, and you can start seeing here is the deforestation going on, and over time. Yeah, it's pretty horrific. And then you can look at a tricky piece of plotted land and see who precisely owned it. And you can go yell at the person who owns it and is doing that. Here's another, so you can see this deforestation. The blue is, that's deforestation happening in conservation land that now you can spot in real time. And as I say, I'm trying to give you guys some time for questions. So if I look at my kind of summary points, we need, all of us in this room, 3 things that we have to be paying attention to. Around energy, we need to create platforms for participation that make it really easy for households to change their energy use patterns. Consumption, we need platforms for participation to make it easier to access things and not own them or to reuse them. We have to make this really simple. And the third thing that I'd really put to all of you guys in this room, which you guys are all doing, is we need to create more and more community. So as I look at the horrific times that are ahead, and I think we will be having some, what is completely certain to me is that having both local and not local communities, but being part of community is what is going to get us as individuals through these terrible times. So we need to start exercising our community action muscle. So we have this community action muscle memory. We have a community action reflex that when bad things happen, we already have our community that we know. We go and talk to them immediately. So that's a very important point. There's two places where you can look for more information. I start to put together a bunch of companies that onto peersincorporated.com to see examples of it. And peers.org is a new NGO that is giving the peers side of those stories. Tim DeChristopher, the first person I think who was arrested for civil disobedience around climate change, he gave this talk, and I love this sentence of his: "We are on track for such rapid and intense change, we might as well steer towards the world we want to see." And so, yes. And so I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you.